I make around $60,000 a month, I'm 21 years old, and the whole thing is built on one idea, which is that people do not make decisions the way they think they make decisions. They believe that they're weighing things up and being logical about it, but they're really not. They're being moved by a handful of psychological levers running underneath the conversation, and once you know where those levers are, you can pull them. Let me be clear about what I actually do so the rest of this makes sense, alright? I sell social media management to local businesses, mostly in the beauty industry, and I got every single client that I have by picking up a phone and calling a stranger who never asked to hear from me. So everything that I'm about to give you was learned on the phone, whether it be a cold call or a sales call, getting hung up on over and over until I worked out what actually moves a person and what is just noise. I'm gonna give you 7 levers, and the thing that makes this different from every other video about persuasion is that I'm giving them to you in the order that you pull them, because they're not a list, they're a sequence, and pulling them out of order is the reason that most people's sales conversations fall apart even when they're saying all the right things. I'm gonna also tell you how each one gets used against you, because every single one of these is being pulled on you right now by companies far better at this than I am, and the moment that you can see them, you stop losing money to them. And the 7th one is the one that actually closes deals, and almost everybody gets it completely backwards, so don't accidentally skip it. So the first lever, and this is the one that changes how you open every conversation that you ever have, is that people do not buy their way into pleasure, they buy their way out of pain. Everybody gets this wrong, and even me, I got it wrong myself for months. When you're new, you sell by describing how good it could be. So you tell them about the growth and the customers and the exciting future that they could have if they worked with you, and you feel like you're doing a great job because you're being positive and you're being enthusiastic, and then they say that it sounds great, but they never speak to you again. The reason that fails is that losing something hurts a lot more than gaining the same thing feels good. That's not an opinion about human nature. No, it's one of the most repeated findings in behavioral psychology. And it means that the emotional weight of a threat is roughly double the emotional weight of an equivalent reward. So a good future is a nice idea that they can put off until next quarter. But a bad present is a problem that they have to deal with today. Which means that the first thing out of my mouth is never about what they could gain, but it's about what is currently being taken from them. I'm not saying you could get more clients. I'm saying that the customers who are searching for what you sell right now are finding somebody else, and that has been happening every week for a year, and it will keep happening this week whether or not you talk to me. It's the same facts but a completely different weight, and then boom, you get an appointment or a sale. Now here's how this gets used against you. Every insurance adverts, every security company, every supplement that talks about what happens if you don't act, and every piece of political messaging that you've ever seen is built on this exact lever. So whenever you notice a sales message making you feel like something is being taken away from you rather than offered to you, that is deliberate, and that feeling of urgency that you're experiencing was manufactured about 10 seconds ago. The second lever is the strongest one I have, and it's honestly the reason that my business works at all, which is that nobody feels behind in the abstract. They only feel behind next to a specific person. You can tell somebody that their social media is underperforming and they will agree with you politely, but do absolutely nothing. Because underperforming compared to what? Is just an opinion that you're offering about their business, and they've heard opinions before. But if I pull up the salon 4 minutes down the road, the one that they already know about and already have feelings about, and I show them that this place is getting 34,000 views on a video while you're getting 200, the entire conversation changes in about 4 seconds. And I don't have to say anything else because the comparison does all the work that my argument was failing to do. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? We're gonna use that quote to our advantage, but it has to be a real comparison to be worth anything. It has to be somebody in their city, in their exact niche, at roughly their size, because the closer that the person is to them, the more it stings. And a big national brand doing well means nothing to them since they've already decided that those people are on a different planet. What I'm doing there is not informing anyone. No, I'm creating a gap between where they think they are and where they actually are, and that gap is genuinely uncomfortable to sit in. So they want to close it, and I'm the one holding the thing that closes it. And how this gets used against you is the entire business model of social media. Every app that you use is a comparison machine that shows you people slightly ahead of you in the exact area that you're insecure about. And it does that because a person who feels behind buys things and a person who feels fine does not. So the next time that you finish scrolling and you feel a bit worse than when you started, understand that this was not an accident. It's the product working correctly. The third lever is specificity, and this one is almost almost too simple to believe until you watch it work. Vague claims make people suspicious, and specific claims do not. And the reason is that we all learned as children that when someone is lying to us, they get vague, because lying requires you to invent details, and inventing details is hard and risky. So liars stay general, which means that your brain runs a background check on everything that it hears, and vagueness sets it off. So when I say a business like yours could do a lot better online, that gets filtered out as just noise, alright, before it even lands. But when I say that your competitor posted 11 times last month and their most recent video did 34,000 views while your last post was in November, nobody argues with me, because those numbers are checkable and I clearly went and looked. The detail is not there to inform them. The detail is there to prove that I'm not making it up. And you can see the same thing in how people talk about money. Somebody saying that they made millions online means nothing to anybody. But somebody saying that they charge $1,500 a month and have 38 clients is a claim that you can check with a calculator. And that's why one of those builds trust and the other one gets ignored. How it's used against you is the reverse, and it's a useful filter. When someone is selling you something and every number that they give you is rounds or vague or a range or a screenshot with no date on it, that vagueness is not an accident either. Ask for the specific number and watch what happens to the conversation. Quick thing before the next 4, because the second half is where this gets genuinely uncomfortable. I put all 7 of these on one page with the exact wording I use for each, so you can keep it next to you when you're actually on a call instead of trying to remember a video. It's free and it's the first link in the description. Alright, lever 4. The fourth lever is that you have to withhold information to create pull. And this one is completely counterintuitive because everything in you wants to do the opposite. When you're proud of what you do, your natural instinct is to go and explain all of it. You want to put your pricing on your website, you want to lay out exactly how the process works, you want to answer every question up front because you think that being open builds trust. But no, what actually happens is that you've answered everything. So now there is no reason on earth for them to talk to you, and they file you away as an option and move on to the next tab. Curiosity is not a mood, it's a physical discomfort, and an open question sits in your head and takes up space until it gets closed. And that's the entire reason that you're still watching this video, because I told you at the start that the 7th lever is the one that closes deals and that most people get it backwards, and part of your brain has been holding that open ever since. So I don't put my pricing anywhere, not on the sites, not in the DMs, not in the email, and when somebody asks what it costs, which is, by the way, mostly 1.5k a month for 15 reels on their page, I tell them it depends on what they need and that I will know once I've looked at their page, which is completely true and also leaves the question open. And now the only way to close it is a conversation with me. The mistake people make with this is thinking that it means being evasive or cagey, and it does not, bro. You give them everything about the outcome and nothing about the mechanism, so they know exactly what they get but have no idea how it works. And how this gets used against you is every pricing page that says contact us for a quote, every waitlist, every launch, and every trailer for a movie that you then went and watched. All right, you are not being informed, you are being kept slightly hungry on purpose. The 5th lever is that people will not contradict something that they've said out loud, and you can use that early to close doors that they don't notice closing. Human beings are deeply uncomfortable being inconsistent with themselves. Once you've said a thing about who you are, especially to another person, going back on it creates a genuinely unpleasant internal conflict. All right, so most people would rather follow through on a statement that they made than admit that the statement wasn't quite true. So early in a conversation, long before anything is being sold, I ask questions that seem like small talk but are not. I'll ask if they see themselves as somebody who moves quickly when they find something that works, or somebody who prefers to sit on things for a while. And obviously nobody wants to say, oh yeah bro, I'm indecisive and slow, so they told me that they move fast. And that answer cost them nothing at the time, but it gets expensive later, because when we get to the end and they told me that they need a few weeks to think about it, I can just remind them of what they told me about themselves. And now they're not arguing with me, they're arguing with their own words, and people almost always lose that argument. The reason this works is that it's not a trick question. No, like, It's a real one, and I'm not putting words in their mouth. I'm giving them a fence and letting them build it. How this gets used against you now is any survey before a pitch, any petition before a donation request, and any salesperson who asks you a bunch of questions that seem irrelevant before they show you anything. They're not being friendly, they're just collecting statements from you that they intend to later use. The sixth lever is that giving something real away first puts the other person quietly in your debt. Reciprocity is about as deep as human wiring goes, and it does not require anybody to consciously agree to it, which is what makes it so effective. If someone does something for you, you feel a low-level obligation to go and do something back, and that feeling shows up even when you never asked for the thing and would rather not have received it. So before I ever pitch anybody, I give them something with real work in it. I'll go through their page properly and tell them the 3 specific things that I would change, and I'll be genuinely useful about it. And I will do that for free with no expectation attached out loud. And it just has to be real, something you actually spend time on, something that they could use if they never pay you a penny, alright? A wordless free thing creates no obligation at all. It just makes you look like everybody else, so make sure that it's valuable. By the time that I get to the price, the dynamic in that conversation has already moved, because I'm not a stranger asking them for money anymore. I'm somebody who already helped them once, alright? Now here's the part that I want you to actually take away from this one, alright? This is the lever most likely to be used on you without you ever noticing, because it works best when it's invisible. Every free consultation, every free sample, every free audit, and every long free video from somebody who also sells something, this one included, is running on it. That doesn't make the free thing bad or dishonest. No, it just means that you should notice the feeling when it arrives and decide on purpose whether you want to act on it, instead of just doing it automatically. And the 7th one is the one that actually closes deals, and the one that almost everybody gets backwards. When you get to the end of a conversation and they haven't said yes, your instinct is to persuade harder. So you list more benefits, you get more enthusiastic, you pile on more reasons, and you push. And the harder that you push, the more that they retreat. And you cannot understand why, because everything that you're saying is true. No. The reason it fails is that closing is not about adding desire. By the time somebody is still on the phone with you 20 minutes in, they already want it. Desire was never the missing piece. What's actually stopping them is one specific doubt. And until that doubt is dealt with, nothing else you say matters. Because every additional benefit that you list is landing on top of an unresolved objection and just making you sound like you're selling harder. So instead of pushing, I go looking for it. I'll ask them straight what's making them hesitate. And then I shut up, which is the hard part, but I let the silence do the work, because the first thing that they say is usually not the real doubts, but the second thing usually is. And then I deal with the actual doubts, and quite often that means agreeing with them, because half the time their hesitation is completely reasonable, and pretending otherwise just tells them that I'm not listening. You're not adding reasons to buy, you're removing reasons not to. Those are 2 totally different jobs, and almost everybody does the first one when the second one is actually what's needed. Now the shields on this one is the most valuable thing in this whole video, so listen carefully. If you're ever in a conversation where somebody is working very hard to remove your doubts, your doubt is probably correct. Doubts is unpleasant, and we're all wired to make it go away, which means a good salesperson can help you get rid of a feeling that actually was protecting you. So the more effort that somebody puts into dissolving your hesitation, the more attention that you should pay to it. So that's the sequence: pain to open, comparison to make it urgent, specificity to make it believable, withholding to create pull, and small commitments to lock it in, and reciprocity to shift the dynamic, and doubt removal to close. Alright, and I want to say the obvious thing before somebody says it for me, which is that all of this is manipulation, and I use that word in the title on purpose because I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But there is a version of this that's straightforwardly evil, and a version of it that isn't, and the whole difference sits in one place. Every one of these levers moves somebody towards a decision, but none of them determine whether the decision is any good. If what you're selling doesn't work, all you've built is a faster way of taking money from people who trusted you, and you'll get it once, and then you'll spend the rest of your life finding new strangers because nobody stays. But I use these on people whose businesses genuinely do better afterwards, because I know my value and what I'm offering, and that is actually going to be good for them. That is the entire difference, and I'm not going to dress it up as anything more principled than that. The other reason to learn this, and honestly the reason that I would want it even if I never sold anything ever again, is that all 7 of these are being pulled calls on you constantly by people with far bigger budgets and far better research than me, and right now you're paying for the fact that you can't see them. Once you can name them, they mostly stop working on you, and that alone is worth more than whatever you make selling. Pick one of the 7 though, alright? Just one, and spend this week watching for it in every adverts, every conversation, every checkout page that you land on, and you will see it 3 or 4 times on day 1, and after that you will never be able to unsee it. One more thing, because there's a piece that I deliberately left out. Everything I just gave you is about moving somebody who was already talking to you, but none of it helps if nobody picks up the phone in the first place, and that's a completely different problem with a completely different solution. So watch this next video where I break down exactly what I say in the first 10 seconds of a cold call to stop a stranger hanging up on me.